The bat gets broken. This is your look at the Diamond Select Bane Gallery Diorama statue. This gallery diorama of Bane is based on his appearance in DC Comics. It is cast in high-quality PVC and features detailed sculpting and collectible quality paint applications. Bane was designed by Cesar and sculpted by Alterton. Before nightfall descends upon us, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the brand new gallery diorama statue of Bane stands. And while I'm doing this, I'd like to thank the folks over at Diamond Select that provided the sample of Bane that we're having a look at in this review. If you're a big fan of Bane like I am and like to add this one to your collection, Bane is currently available right now in comic book stores and online as well. The figure stands 9.9 inches in height, which translates to a statue being 25.3, almost 25.5 centimeters in height. Nightfall, as well as the death of Superman, were one of those pivotal titles of comics when I was growing up. I was sure to collect every single issue of Nightfall I could get, and of course also got the issue which was the breaking of the bat. I think it was Batman 497. I may or may not be correct by that. Nonetheless, though, we are getting a true representation of Bane represented here as a gallery diorama statue. And let me just say, I have waited anxiously for this statue to arrive. Before, of course, we get a closer look at Bane himself, let's pick up this rather heavy statue, I might add, and get a closer look at the details on the base itself. Now, obviously, like all other cases of gallery diorama statues, they're made of PVC plastic, and generally the bottom is hollow. Obviously, that's not going to be the place that you're going to be seeing it, but it kind of gives you an idea of the coloring that they likely then used, and then very intricately painted all the detail over top of it. In this case, they've added a nice slick, wet coat, though it's not wet, obviously, now to the touch, but a dark gray surface of paint to really bring out all the details, the cracks and indentations to the stone that he's standing on top of. It actually looks like Bane is making his way down into the Batcave. And as he's making his way down, several thrown batarangs stop him in his tracks. And obviously, as you can see by the way he's stepping down on one of the batarangs, it doesn't look like it's stopping him anytime soon. I do like the fact that the base is kept generally basic and simple. It doesn't add any unnecessary colors that drive away from Bane himself. In fact, really, the only colors that are on Bane at all, other than like dark colors, of course, is more the colors of the cowl and cape. The one trophy that he's taking away from his battle and breaking of Batman. Bane comes across as an absolute behemoth, and that's the way he really should be. It's also really nice to go back to the design of Bane where we didn't see a mouth, for example. We have just the more traditional luchador-style mask that he would wear in the early days of Nightfall, which, as you can see, covers his face and mouth completely. Despite the covering of his face, I don't know if you can actually see it or not, but there's clearly an indentation, a section where it's shaped around his nose. And also the same can be said around for his mouth as well. There's just a little faint trace there of a mouth and pair of lips that's underneath the mask. The mask is generally quite clean. There are little areas around the eyes where I feel a little bit of the red has bled itself onto the white that's around it. But for the most part, the mask is done pretty good. We look to the side here, of course, when we get to the tubes of venom pumping into his bloodstream, you can also see that the mask, the way that they've sculpted, they didn't simply just paint a place, a stopping point where the mask would stop and the rest of his body would resume. There is actually a sculpted line right there. I draw your attention to it because sometimes things and details like that can be overlooked, but if you really take the time to look at those details, you really see how much companies spend that extra little mile sculpting the end of Bane's mask. And I really like the fact that they did do that, not simply just paint the line where the mask would ultimately stop. You can definitely see there's a lot of veins running through his body, through his biceps, through his forearms, and of course around the areas of his shoulders as well. The venom, as it's continuing to run itself through its veins, becomes much more prominent here on this one side, where he doesn't have it as much on the other. This is the section, of course, that's holding the cowl and cape in hand. I do like the fact that they added a lot of additional shadowing right here that's beaming down, or in this case, I guess would be the opposite if it would be a shadow, but you definitely have a really stark line where there's a shadow running down the side of Batman's former cowl and also down his cape as well. There's a little bit of tatteredness also to the cape. Nice touches on their part. But going back to the Bane, though, he's a big, bulky behemoth, like I said. We spin it around and we have a look at the back here. You can see also the little control pad that he has on his arm to control and fluctuate the amount of venom that's running through his body. One single tube runs its way all the way up in a very bright neon green, and then from there branches off and roots itself to the side of the back of his mask here, and I really like the way that that turned out. These are slightly more softer, so we'll want to be careful of that. But just look at the amount of detail that they put to the back of his torso, for example. I'm assuming that's all hair, back hair specifically, and he has quite a bit of foliage running across from shoulder to shoulder. He doesn't have it anywhere else, so I'm guessing Bane likely shaves, but I even like the fact that they added little wrinkles there on the ends of his elbows. Nice little touches again of all those details I'm talking about. And when we look at the front of Bane, when it comes to his costume, they could have gone simply the route of making this all just smooth, undetailed, untextured material. But instead, actually, what they've gone in there, and hopefully the camera's picking it up, they've almost given it a somewhat faux leather look. I see more of it, really, when I'm looking at his hands. Nice little also details is the fact that they gave real grimy-looking fingers to each one of the digits on Bane's hand. Really like the way that those are all grimy and dirty and disgusting like that. But if we look really closely at his pants, for example, not only are we treated to a whole bunch of additional shadowing that's happening on the sides of his muscles, for example, but even like the fabric of his pants. Again, you've got that cross-hatching texturing that they've done to the pants. I really like the way that that turned out. Between the texturing and the way that's been airbrushed in the darker color, it really does form and shape out the muscles in his legs. And it also does add a lot of additional highlights and lowlights to the wrinkles of his pants, the ones that are, of course, tucked into his boots. Definitely one of my favorite aspects is that crushing of the Batarang, sort of signifying that he's broken the bat. If not even just looking at that, would obviously be the telltale sign, the fact that he's holding the cape and cowl in his hand. It is definitely a cool-looking statue. And we don't really get a lot of Banes either, and that's one of the disappointing aspects of things. I mean, everybody really focused on the Dark Knight Rises Bane, and while that was a good Bane, I always liked the more traditional OG design of Bane. And I really think that Diamond Select, in the case of this release, did Bane true justice, big and bulky, and just beating the bat. During the decade of the 90s, I was heavily into collecting comics. Comics, of course, back then were a lot cheaper. You could pick up a comic an issue for $1.25. I don't even think you can get a comic taxed for $1.25. Usually they're like, what, $3, $4. But back in the 90s, $1.25, well, where's it at? If you had enough pocket change in your pocket, you could easily pick up an issue of the Batman, Detective Comics, or any of the other issues that Nightfall stretched across. Nightfall, of course, culminated with the breaking of the bat, and of course eventually led Azrael for taking the mantle of the bat, and sort of to less than stellar results before Bruce Wayne claimed the cowl again. But of course the one thing that I remember the most is the breaking of the bat. Bane had exhausted Bruce Wayne to the point where he could no longer stay up, and then that was the time that he came in and decided to break him, literally breaking Batman's back over his knee. And no better of a tribute to that moment in comics is the gallery diorama statue release here from Diamond Select. I do like the fact it plays out that story, and the one thing I always really like about the gallery statues is a lot of times you can look at the statue and you can kind of start guessing what's happening in this scene. Obviously, this is a case where it looks like Bane has already broken Bat. He's taken his cowl, his cape, and has stepped on the few remaining Batarangs that were in his trail in the beginning. Bane is just stepping all over it as he's leaving, probably leaving the Batcave because he's got the cape and cowl in his hand. That's the guess I have, at least. He's big, he's bulky, and that also equals a relatively heavy gallery diorama statue. Even though technically it's made out of PVC plastic, there's a lot of good bulky weight going on here in Bane. And obviously it would have to be, for the size of his build. They really did push that venom to the limits, and it results in a really impressive looking statue. A big thank you again to the folks over at Diamond Select who provided the sample of Bane that we had to look at in this review. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the statue. And if you're interested to pick this one up for yourself, the Bane Gallery Diorama statue is available right now in comic book stores and online as well. If you're a big fan of Bane and Nightfall, you definitely will be wanting to pick this one up and adding it to your collection. If you are new to the channel and you're liking all the content you're seeing, of course on a regular basis, because we're doing this Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but let's just say you're jumping in on the channel now, you saw it maybe based on this review, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, and for the sake of knowing when new videos are popping up, make sure as well you turn on that bell notification. Definitely going to be a lot more videos coming your way, and in addition to that, we're going to be also looking at a ton new of gallery diorama statues. There's going to be a lot coming your way. I've got a whole stack to go through, so there's definitely going to be a lot more of those heading your way. So keep your peepers peeled, and as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.